Good evening. A wonderful windy Wednesday here in Toronto to everybody out there. Hope you all had a photometric, but hopefully not photospheric summer. And welcome to Rask Toronto Centre. We are online tonight again, back after the summer break, and I am Dr. Elena Hyde, the second vice president of the Rask Toronto Centre. This is our September 2022 Speakers Night presentation. This is one of two types of gatherings that we have online these days, not at the Ontario Science Centre due to the pandemic, but online on YouTube. Our president, Tom Luton, will be talking about various programs later on this evening, but we have first a very special event to kick off. And as they are getting started with our meeting here, I would like to take just a moment to acknowledge that the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada Toronto Centre meets on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations, including the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and other Anishinaabe peoples. These lands are part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty and are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. As we engage in astronomy here together, we respect, learn from, and honor the deep relationship between Indigenous peoples, the sky, and Earth. For our speakers night tonight, I am absolutely delighted to welcome Julie Tomé, astronomer extraordinaire, as you'll find out shortly. Now, to introduce our fantastic speaker, for over 20 years, Julie Tomé has inspired wonder and curiosity about the night sky through her work at various observatories, including the Allen Carswell Observatory, among others, science centers, and museums. And if that wasn't enough, she also has been doing numerous outreach activities. She is a regular host on the York Universe radio program. And as a museum educator, Julie shares her passion for all things science and history with folks of all ages through school programs, camps, exhibits, and special programs. And this summer in particular, she combined several of those skills to serve as the astronomer in residence, or as we like to call it, AIR, because we love acronyms in astronomy. This Astronomer in Residence AIR program was for the Allen Carswell Observatory and the Killarney Provincial Park in Ontario. She was there from August 15th to the 21st. And just as a little side note, if you do want to find out even more about her adventures, they're actually still online on the Observatory AIR site. And our current AIR, Quentin Wayrich, who's up at the park until October 9th, is posting away right now. So Julie Tomei, a Jeopardy player, radio presenter, and now astronomer in residence alumni. She can be found at Julie M. Tomei on Twitter and has a absolutely stellar program lined up. So, without any further ado, Julie, please take it and us up, and away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. And thank you, Elena, for inviting me to talk about this wonderful opportunity that I had to spend a week at Killarney Park. Um, I guess the first thing I want to do is just add a little bit to the land acknowledgement because I am joining from north of the city today. I am joining from my home in Aurora, and that puts me on a different parcel of land. So the lands that I am on are subject to Treaty 13 and Williams treaties of 1923 with the Chippewa of Lake Simcoe and the Mississaugas of the North Shore of Lake Ontario. And I do encourage everyone to look up. There's a few different places online that you can go and find out, look up whose land you are actually on. I've been taught that a land acknowledgement should include something about yourself, make a connection, and not just be words spoken as rote memory. So I am a settler. I am an uninvited guest on this land. On my mom's side, we can trace our roots back to the first colonists that came from France. And my father came to Canada, or the land we now know as Canada, in the 60s as an immigrant from Italy. I was born in Quebec City, but I grew up in Mississauga. The GTA, except for a few years in there, has been my home. It's been where I've lived, worked, learned, played. Um, and where I learned all about the sky, and where I developed this passion um, for the night sky. So, um, the talk this evening is going to be, as the title said, the wanderings of, or the travel log of a wandering astronomer. If this were the, as my son puts it, the olden days, I would be pulling out the slide projector and the screen, the portable screen, and we'd all be settling in for a nice evening of looking at photos. We're doing this in the more modern way now. So getting there, the long story, a little bit about myself. Um, I guess a little bit more about myself. As Elena said, I did go to York University. I did work at the observatory the 5 years that I was a student at York. And there is a photo of me on the left at the 40 centimeter telescope in the old domes that are now no more because they're nice, shiny new domes in at the observatory there, and that 40 centimeter telescope has been replaced by a nice 1 meter telescope, but the 40 centimeter is now moved to the next building over, so that's still in use. And that observatory is where I started my journey of what is called informal education. So people coming out on their free time, learning about something that interests them, and in this case, astronomy. And through a winding path, I find myself today working at the ROM, and there I am, a photo that was taken just a month or so ago in one of the newest galleries at the ROM, the Dawn of Life. I'm peeking out through the mouth of a Dunkel osteus, a giant, bony jawed fish from before the dinosaurs. So getting to Killarney more literally. My husband Dennis, that's him in the center top of the first photo, and he and I both spent some time in Sudbury many moons ago. And so we still have some friends up there, and we decided, since we're going to be so close at Killarney, we may as well head up a day early, spend a night with some friends, and then we're not going to be so rushed getting to Killarney to check in on the Monday. So the Sunday, we drove up. The kids fell asleep in the back seat, and we were able to show them a little bit of our old stomping grounds. The building in the background in that first photo is the old hospital. And in 2019, I believe, maybe 2020, it was as part of an arts festival turned into the largest mural in Canada. So I was like, hey, let's go check it out. And so, of course, we had to take a family photo in front. That's the one good photo I got of all of us, because it's very hard to get a photo of our family. And our trusty steed is our family camper van that you see there on the right-hand side. And we've been dragging our family from one end of the country to the other, together in that vehicle since 2017. All right. So the observatory. There are actually two domes at Killarney Park. They each have names that are in Anishinaabemowin, which is the language of the Anishinaabe people. One dome is called Wasa Debabing, which means seeing far as the eye can see. And the other one is called Gitchi Wasa Debabing, which is seeing very far as the eye can see. So let's take a closer look at both of those domes. We'll start with Wasa Debabing. This is the first observatory that was added, and it's got the smaller of the two telescopes. It's a Meade 10-inch scope. It has a traditional finder scope on it. It also has a Telrad on it, which is great. Um, I have a soft spot for the Telrad. When I was 16, I got my first telescope, went down to F's in Science. I'm sure many people in the audience will remember the giant telescope on top of the store, and got a 8-inch Dob and brought it home and had a Telrad, brought it home. And for the next week, it was cloudy because that is how things happen in astronomy. But because that was my first telescope, my first finder that I got used to, I really enjoy a Telrad. And the 10-inch scope is the one that's equipped with the solar filter. So we have here a couple of photos. The one on the far right was one that I took while I was waiting for it to get dark one night. And Gitchi Wadabobbing or Wasadabobbing is the second dome that was installed at the site. It's got the larger telescope. It's got a Meade LX600 16-inch, and mounted on the back is a Canon EOS 6D Mark II DSLR camera, as well as a ZWO ASI 224 MC camera. And I knew that there'd be somebody out there wanting to know these exact details, so I included them. Again, it's got a traditional finder on that one. And there's a smaller refractor piggybacked on top of that one that's got eyepieces. All right, so that was the equipment that I was working with for the week. All right. So, rest of the presentation, we're just going to be going day by day. So, we arrived later in the afternoon on the Monday, met with Kathleen, who's the head park naturalist. She gave me the keys. She got me to sign a bunch of things. She showed me to the apartment. We got all our stuff in the apartment. We figured out where to park the van. We decided to park it at the bottom of the ramp to Wasada Bobbing. There was a nice electrical outlet there, which is great because there are no electrical campsites at Killarney. It's a wilderness level park. So that was better camping than we would have had. Yeah, we're glampers. The apartment has 2 twin beds in it. So as our family of 4 would not fit everyone sleeping in there. So my husband and my son wound up sleeping in the van, and my daughter and I slept in the apartment. And basically unloaded all our stuff, took a look at the discovery program that Kathleen had given us, the list of all the programs that were happening that week, for 2 reasons. One, I had to know when I was committed to be on, because part of the AIR program commitment was I had to give 3 public programs. And 2, we love discovery programs. And so we wanted to decide which programs we wanted to attend. There's also some really nice hiking at Killarney, and we wanted to decide on our schedule for the rest of the week. And then when we are at provincial parks, the majority of our time is spent at the beach. And so we headed out to the beach. The main beach at Killarney has a nice big rock a little ways out from the shore that you can either walk around to or you can swim out to. And my son had a great deal of fun jumping off of it as many times as he possibly could. You can see him there giving a nice thumbs up. And so, yeah, that was a quiet evening. Just getting our bearings and getting settled in. Tuesday, the adventures began in earnest. So we got up early. We had a morning hike with one of the interpreters, Marissa. Right at the beginning of the hike, there was a bear on the trail. Like, we were standing at the trailhead and there was a bear. So we made a bunch of noise. The bear went away. Apparently, might have been Boris. There's a bear that likes to hang out near the maintenance sheds. Um, Anyways, we didn't see the bear after that, so that was good. We continued on our hike. It was a lovely hike. The theme of the hike was our connections with Killarney Park. So Marissa found ways to connect us as people, as humans, with the plants, with the soil, with the creepy crawly things in the soil, with the rocks, and even all the way at the end when we got to the top of Granite Ridge with the stars. Um, we got a little bit of the history of the park as well. We've been on to a lot of parks, national parks, provincial parks. We've been on a lot of programs, a lot of guided hikes, a lot of interpretive things. This was one of, I would say, in the top 5 programs. So if you're ever in Killarney and you see the connecting hike, I highly recommend it. We, of course, got some more beach time in. We met a little snaky friend, northern water snake. And so, had a nice chill afternoon. And when evening came, I got some time in the dome. That night, I did a lot of head scratching. And it wasn't just because of the mosquitoes. The scope of the 16-inch, I decided I'm going with the big one. But the 16-inch had lost its brain, as Bruce Waters had put it. He's sort of in charge of the observatory up there. And I didn't realize that meant that the whole, you got, when you turn on a telescope with a go-to, you do your 2-star alignment or your 1-star alignment or whatever before you do that. And I've been very practiced with that at the observatory at York. And I was like, okay, got to do this thing. And I was really good at that 20 years ago, but I hadn't done one in 20 years. And I confused the scope. The scope confused me. I did a lot of head scratching. It wasn't tracking. I was trying to find things through the finder scope. I learned that my eyes are not what they were 20 years ago. And so when trying to line up the 2 screws on top of the finder scope with what I wanted to see, that wasn't happening very well. I had a really hard time seeing the screws, and then the thing makes me love the Telrad even more than I did when I was 16. But you know what? I was struggling with it, but I was enjoying it nonetheless because it had been so long since I'd been at a telescope. At one point, my son came out to find me, and he just made a beeline for me. Came out of the apartment, made a beeline for me. Didn't really look around. He got to me, and he looked up, and he just stopped. He said, "Wow, there's so many stars." I was like, "Yeah, buddy, there are." Anyways, I plugged at it for a few hours and I went to bed. I decided that the next night I would try again, but just to observe, just to be at the scope, just to look at things, not to, try to take pictures, not to try to whatever, just to enjoy. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday was my first official program. Before I headed up to Killarney, I'd been in touch with Kathleen, and we decided on what types of programs that I would be offering. So we decided on a couple of drop-in programs. I was the first heir to go up who is bilingual, and we figured drop-in programs would give me the opportunity to speak to any francophones that were there in French without having to have a formal program where I would have to say everything in English and then say everything in French, or have an offering that was just in French because she didn't think there would necessarily be enough that much demand for a full French program. So the first was a drop-in observing the sun program. We scheduled 2 hours for it because why not? And we had quite a few people drop by. Um, there were a few little clouds coming in and out, but if we waited long enough, there were little sucker holes or the clouds would disappear altogether. Everyone who came got to take a look at the sun, which was fantastic. There were some nice groupings of sunspots. The telescope was behaving magnificently. This was the 10-inch, so wasn't the one that confused me the night before. I have to say that lining up the scope brought back a flood of memories from the first year observing project, which when I was at York was observing and tracking sunspots. Um, and yeah, it was lovely. It was a chance for my kids and my husband to see me in action because for the most part, they don't get to see that very often. Um, and they kind of jumped in on the action a little bit once they'd heard the spiel a few times. Later in the evening, we attended Grandmother Kim Wheatley's presentation at the amphitheater. Um, and she's from Shawanaga First Nation. She told us about herself, her family, her journey from growing up and being to where she is today. And she also told us this wonderful Anishinaabe story about stars and water lilies. Um, and it was just lovely. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then after that, we walked back to the apartment, to the observatory, and I pulled out my trusty Bright Telescopic Objects and Overlooked Telescopic Objects books that I had put tabs all over with like a bajillion different objects that I, had hoped to possibly look at during the next drop-in program, which was scheduled for the Friday evening. I wanted to practice my aiming at things because my sight is not what it used to be. Luckily, the scope has a Telrad. Unfortunately, the batteries of the Telrad were dead. So again, that night I was using the traditional finder scope, but that's okay. I managed. I found some things. We looked at some stuff and we had a terrific night. A few campers came by, hoping that I might be out. So I did a little impromptu observing session with them. We took a look at the Ring Nebula. We took a look at the Andromeda Galaxy, the Great Hercules Cluster. And by the time we'd seen those, Saturn and then eventually Jupiter had come up high enough above the trees. My family was pretty wowed by Saturn and Jupiter. My husband insisted I had stuck a sticker at the end of the telescope. It's like, no, honey, I did not do that. That is the planet you are looking at. Yes. I did spend an embarrassing amount of time trying to use my cell phone to take a picture of the planets through the eyepiece. It didn't work out. I have a couple of terrible photos of those planets through the eyepiece, but why not? So yeah, it was a lovely evening. And then I went in to get some sleep because we had a big day planned for Thursday. Because Thursday was the day we went and hiked the crack. Now, my son is 10 years old. You can't say, hey, we're going to go hike the crack around a 10-year-old and not expect to have unending jokes. They ended after we did the hike because it's advertised as a 6-kilometer hike, but they've had to add a detour. So it's actually, I was told by one of the interpreters, closer to a 9-kilometer hike now. And it's a tough one. I'd done it in 2006, which was the only other time I'd been at Killarney Park before. I'd forgotten how tough it was. I'd remembered there were two rock walls at the end and some big rocks you got to climb up. Like I remembered that bit. I'd forgotten the like half kilometer to kilometer of other rocks you climb over before you get there. Um, but it's a fantastic hike, and the view from the top is just so worth it. I mentioned earlier that grandmother Kim Wheatley had told a story about stars and water lilies. So here's a water lily. Here's my son. Every time he saw in that here, hold on. Oh, there's my mouse. Here's a water lily. Here's my son. And every time he saw a water lily, the rest of the trip, he stopped to tell the story and sing a song to the water lilies, as grandmother Wheatley had suggested in her story. It was really sweet. I was really proud of my family. My husband and I kind of drag the kids on hikes. We've been doing this for a few years. The complaining and whining is usually endless. They're pretty good about it this year, and only warranted tears were cried. We were just about at that last climb when my daughter stopped and was like, I just need to stop for a minute. I was like, I feel you. I feel you. It's hot. This is hard. We didn't bring enough water. Okay. We had lunch at the top. We climbed back down, made it back to the apartment, hydrated, rested, um, and it was nice. And that was not the only hiking we did that day, because that night there was an owl hike. And so we joined park interpreter Kate for the owl prowl. And this started just as dark was setting in. It's one of the more interesting programs that I've been on, because we were all in the dark and we wanted to be dark adapted. So a few people had red lights, and that was it. And we had to be quiet, because if we were making too much noise, any owls that might be in the area would be scared off. It's amazing how quiet, and probably about 50 people were on this hike. It's amazing how quiet a group of 50 people can be if you tell them, we gotta be quiet, or the thing you've come to see is not gonna show up. Sadly, no owls responded to our calls, but it was still a really cool experience. After that hike, I decided to give the 16-inch another shot. I had spoken to Bruce the day before. He assured me that it was tracking properly, and I don't know what I'd done on the Tuesday night, but yeah, it was totally tracking properly. It was fine. Everything was fine. I decided to take a shot at some astrophotography. Now, I've never done any digital astrophotography. All the astrophotography I've done was with an OM1 that I bought secondhand, and tripod mounted. Like I've never hooked it up to a telescope. So like I was just doing all the new things. I managed to focus the camera. I took a bunch of terrible images that I decided to save some disk space on their laptop and just deleted. But I tried a thing. It was cool, and maybe if I get to go next summer, I will work on it a little bit more. I'd hope to get another shot at it, but well, we'll see what happens. You'll see what happens. Yeah, so had another couple hours at the scope, and then called it a night. My feet were tired, but my heart was full. Friday was a pretty chill day. They don't just have astronomers in residence, they also have artists in residence at the park. And so my daughter and I went and did a little bit of painting, a couple hours of painting on Friday morning. So there is my painting on the left-hand side. It is not finished yet. I still have to add some antennae and background flowers and such to my painting. Um, but I didn't want, we had 10 minutes left when I got to that point, and I didn't want to rush it and flub it. So I was like, I have what I need at home. I will take it home. And of course, Friday evening was my second program. And again, drop in program, um, scheduled between 10 and midnight. It was super well attended. I had Kate from the park with me. She had her clicker counting people as they came in. There were so many people that after a little bit, I was like, hey, Kate, want to open up the other dome? And she was like, sure. So she stopped counting at about 70. There were probably 100 in all. She said it's the most people she'd ever seen come to a drop-in program. People were there all the way through till midnight. Definitely at the beginning was when the most people were there, which was too bad because Jupiter and Saturn, they weren't visible till later. But took a look at the Ring Nebula, took a look at the Great Hercules Cluster, Saturn, Jupiter. My husband jumped in, helped out. I actually wound out outside the dome talking to people, and he was inside telling people, like, don't grab the eyepiece, just come up and look. Which was nice to have help with that flow of people. This dome's pretty small. You can only have like 1 or 2 people in there at a time. There were a few clouds that were coming in that night, but they didn't interfere with our observing, which was really great. So the objects we were looking at were high enough up in the sky. The clouds were low enough at the horizon that they didn't get in the way. Everybody who came got to look through the scope, and it was another great night. And my husband said, I need a shot of you in action. So there we have it there on the right. And then Saturday, I got up Saturday thinking, how is it Saturday already? How is this almost done? We had another hike planned on the Chickanishing Trail, which was another one that I had hiked a part of when I was in Killarney in 2006. When I was there in 2006, it was when I was doing the science communication program that's offered by Laurentian University in partnership with Science North. And we were there for a conference, but it was really well organized. We would do like conference stuff in the morning and then like enjoy the park in the afternoon. And we got to go hiking and do some like watercolor painting in the afternoon. So on that hike, I like went and found the spot where like 16 years ago I'd sat with my classmates and done some watercolor painting. And the rest of the day was kind of chill as I was like putting the last finishing touches on my slide presentation, making sure I knew all my facts and figures and whatnot. I decided to do my talk about meteorites because the park has a couple of meteorites and they were touchable. So I can't help myself. I was like, meteorites, awesome, touchable, excellent. And so what you see here is us on the hike. You may or may not be able to tell. Apparently, part of standard hiking equipment is a ukulele. My son has a ukulele strapped to his back. And apparently, if there's a whiteboard, my son will add decorations to it. So there he is adding a happy little meteorite to the advertisement. And they have a really nice setup. The amphitheater is lovely, and that's like a little garage door thing in the middle. It goes up. They have a screen that comes down. The projector shines from the back, which is perfect for shadow puppets or pretending that you are holding on to the little meteorite that I had put into my slideshow and giving Earth a hug because my children are goofy and adorable. The talk was well attended. There were 60 people plus a dog. Um, Lots of questions. And of course, everyone enjoyed touching the meteorites at the end. They have um, a piece of Allende, a slice of Allende, a slice of an iron meteorite, of which one I'm not quite sure. They also had a lunar and a Martian meteorite, but those two didn't come out. So it's just the iron and the Allende that came out. It'd been clear all week up until that point, but Saturday was cloudy, solid cloud all day. I was really hoping to get one more night at the scope, but you can't have everything. So sadly, I did not get one last chance, but it was a fantastic week nonetheless. And then Sunday morning was packing up, cleaning the place. Elena was going to be in the apartment after me, so I made sure it was all nice and spick and span for her. We went and got our stickers. We are big collectors of the stickers. Here's in the passport. Here's the patch. And we have what you see on the left there is the ceiling of the ceiling above the bed in our camper van. Ever since we started dragging our kids across country, we've been collecting stickers from all the parks that we have camped at. So we had to add our Killarney stickers. We'd been told all week that the lighthouse in the town of Killarney was really cool. So we went out there, got some fish and chips at the place that sells world famous fish and chips. They were fish and chips. And made some more friends. Found some frogs and some snakes and some butterflies. And before we knew it, it was time to go home because we had to come back to real life and go back to work and all that fun stuff. And here's where I say thank you to all the people that made this wonderful week possible. The park staff at Killarney, especially Kathleen, Marissa, Kate, and Harrison, for making the stay so fantastic. The Friends of Killarney for funding the program. Bruce for answering all my texts about the scopes. The campers for coming out to the programs, Elena for encouraging me and nudging me to get my application in, and last but certainly not least, my husband and my two kids for being the best assistants an astronomer could ask for. All right, that's it. Any questions? My socials down there, and also if you would like to know any information about the AIR program, the link is right there, observatory.info.yorku.ca/air.
Thank you, Julie. And again, thank you also for cleaning the apartment when you did leave. As you mentioned, it's a little spoiler, but I was up there after Julie, so I can attest to the amazing location and the amazing dark skies. And out at these natural reserves where we do have amazing dark skies, it just becomes so clear that astronomy really links us to our location on Earth in so many ways. So what a unique location, unique skies, and what a great talk, Julie. So thank you very much for
Yeah.
giving us these captivating, exciting images and stories. We do have a few questions coming your way. I'm not sure how many we'll be able to get to, but I'm going to pass to Emma for questions now.
Great. So this first one's not really a question, more of an announcement. The Doc Astro applications for 2023 Astronomer in Residence will open in January. Another comment you got is that the giant telescope is still on top, from coming in from Eric Briggs, the giant telescope is still on top of the building that used to be Eston Science. He saw it 2 weeks ago, but it's no longer a telescope shot.
Yes. Okay. I didn't know the telescope was still there. That's good. Sadly, yeah, it's no longer a telescope.
Yeah.
And hi, Eric.
You actually also got a question from Eric, who wants to know, did you see any Starlinks?
Um, I don't know. We did see the first night that we were out there, we saw this really weird thing. It was like a bar going across the sky. And someone told me that it was like a bunch of satellites that had yet to like spread out that were moving together. It was like one of the weirdest things I'd ever seen. Um, I don't know if those are Starlink or not.
Cool. Thank you. Next question comes in from Doc Astro, who wants to know, did you have a chance to try to count the number of stars in a constellation to see how dark the skies were?
I didn't try that. My gauge of like how dark a sky is can I see naked eye the Andromeda galaxy? And the answer is yes. I know that that's not like how people do it. That's just my own personal gauge. Can I see the Milky Way and can I see the Andromeda galaxy with the naked eye? And it was yes on both counts.
Cool. Thank you. This next question comes in from Eric Briggs. Doesn't the photography you used to do at the Yorkview Observatory count as digital astrophotography?
Well, yeah, sure. Yes. I guess so. I just, not with like a DSLR and you had to take like flats and darks and I've always thought of those as like a separate thing because they were for science and not for like look at the pretty picture I took. But I guess yeah, sure, if you want to get technical, Eric, okay. But like personal, like not for an observing project and not for like observatory research, I've only done film.
Well, it's still really cool that you got to do that. This next question,
and just so people don't think I'm getting like snarky with a random stranger, I know Eric. We've been friends since York days.
That's great. Cool. Yeah. So next question comes in from Doc Astro again, who wants to know, what is your favorite meteorite?
Allende is my favorite meteorite. It's such a cool story. For those who don't know, in February of 1969, a bunch of rocks fell near the town of Pueblo de Allende in the Chihuahua region of Mexico. Because it was 1969, a whole bunch of labs throughout the United States were ready with what was at the time the most high-tech equipment for geological studies because moon landing was happening in just a few months. The plan was we're bringing back rocks from the moon. We're going to study them. And so someone said, hey, let's go collect some of these. And as a result, they are some of the most studied meteorites. And they have something called calcium aluminum inclusions in them. And these are things that formed in the conditions that existed right after the sun formed, but before the planets formed. So I always, working in a museum, you get asked like, what's the oldest thing you have? What's the biggest thing you have? What's the smallest thing you have? And when people ask me what's the oldest thing you have, that's easy. It's the Allende meteorite in that cabinet over there. And when you touch an Allende meteorite, that's the oldest thing you'll ever touch. That thing is literally older than dirt. It's older than the Earth. And yeah, that's why I love the Allende meteorites. They're cool.
That is actually really cool. Sorry, before we move on to the next question, can you actually touch it at the ROM, or is it like behind a glass case?
The one that's on display is behind a glass case, but
okay,
we have one that we use for like lessons and public programs. So every now and then you can get to touch an Allende meteorite at the ROM, and people who are at my program at Killarney got to to touch it. And I think they did come out for a couple of the other heirs who did programs like about meteorites and Come Touch the Meteorite. So there are opportunities.
That's really cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You still got a few more questions. This next one comes in from Zena Kadur, who says, thanks, Julie, for a great talk. I can hear the passion and excitement in your voice. What's your favorite star, and were you able to observe it at Killarney?
Oh, my favorite star. I like Alberio, which is, I guess, kind of cheating because it's 2 stars. But it's a neat double star in Cygnus, and it's cool because there's like a yellow star and a blue star. And I did get to observe it. I did manage to, on that night where I was having trouble with the 16-inch, it is one of the things that I did manage to get in the scope. I was looking at it through the refractor that's piggybacked on top of it, and I showed it to my son and my husband. And it's just a neat one because so often when you're looking through a small telescope, because let's face it, even 16-inch, like these are small telescopes, right? You're looking at faint things. The part of your eye that's being activated are the rods. These are the things that are good for seeing faint light, but they don't see in color, right? So you're not getting a lot of color. You're not looking through a small telescope and getting like those big, beautiful, like Hubble images, right? And often people look through a telescope and go, well, why doesn't it look like the Hubble image I saw online? It's like, well, there's a lot of reasons. Let's discuss. But you do get the 2 colors there, which is cool. So I like that one. It's also like, easy to point out, easier to find as well. So.
It's a good answer. You got a couple of comments. Eric Briggs says that Brenda and I first met at the York U Observatory more than 20 years ago, and Julie knows because she was there.
I do. I remember.
He also said that it was great info about the Allende meteorite and that he didn't know that. This is likely your last question. Coming in from Poria Azimi. Do you have a favorite galaxy?
Andromeda, hands down. I don't know why. It's pretty. It's kind of always been, like since I was a teenager. I mean, ours is pretty cool too. It's a good place to live.
Very cool. Very cool. That's it for the questions and comments tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for your great questions and your great comments.
Great answers.
Thank you.
Wonderful, and great to see so many questions coming in, lots of interest about all the amazing stuff that Julie saw. So thank you once again, Julie. We certainly could stay here quite a while talking about meteors and skies and astronomy. What a wonderful program. I mean, I'm a little biased, everyone knows, but I love the stories that you brought us. And with that, I think it is time for me to say thank you officially once again for tonight and hand over to the president of the Rask Toronto Centre, Tom Luton, to finish off the evening.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much to our speaker, somebody who has done astronomical outreach also in the Georgian Bay area, except in my case, I was on the back of a ferry running between Tobermory and Manitoulin. The skies can be amazing in that area. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome, and let's get through our announcements. So, as we've got 2 types of meetings here online. We have our speaker nights, which you've just witnessed, and in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to have one of our recreational astronomy nights. If you're watching us live, please say hello in the YouTube chat, enter some questions for our presenters, as others have already done. If you're a new member, please introduce yourself. And if you're coming from far, far away, from far outside the Toronto area, please let us know where you're coming from. So our next recreational astronomy night is on the 5th of October, 7:30 p.m. Andy Beaton will be discussing the sky this month. Francois Van Heerden will be test driving the TubeTech 20 megapixel TEC camera. And Jason Dane will be discussing his astrophotography journey uh, right here live on YouTube. If you'd like to present something, please contact Paul Markov. Our next speaker's night is Wednesday, the 19th of October, 7:30 p.m. Uh, Jabavu Jabba Adams from York University will be talking about always looking, always learning, from amateur astronomy to computing and back again. So, effective April 1st, the Toronto Centre restarted public outreach for outdoor activities. And we recommend that volunteers and visitors wear masks. We ask that our operators disinfect their eyepieces and any other touch points. We require visitors to disinfect their hands before touching any info booth literature. And we are asking that anyone who wants to participate, please take into consideration their personal health and comfort first. And on that note, our next outdoor outreach event, is on Friday, September 30th, Millennium Square in Pickering at 6 p.m. Join us and our sponsor, Durham Skies, for an evening of free public stargazing along the North Shore of Lake Ontario at Millennium Square. Please bring your own telescope. We'll be happy to help you set it up and aim it at the moon. Just a reminder, the temperature is cooler down by the lake, so dress accordingly. Please check our website for a go or no-go decision based on the weather before heading out. Coming up, observing sessions. The next City Star Party is at Bayview Village Park, the first clear night of the week of October 3rd to the 6th. At the CAO, access to CAO facilities is by members and families only in a modified communal fashion, with total site occupancy limited to 25 individuals. The upstairs washroom is only for upstairs bookings. Max occupancy for the upstairs bedrooms is 2 people from the same family per bedroom for a total of 6 people, with communal areas limited to 3 people wearing masks. All CAO users can use both kitchens, the downstairs washroom, and the downstairs washroom while wearing masks. Full details are on the website. Please read everything before you make your booking. We're looking for some volunteers. Um, we're looking for light pollution committee chair. We're looking for a volunteer committee chair. We're looking for a marketing committee chair and committee members. The AV committee is always on the lookout for additional assistants. These are the fine folks who have worked so hard this evening to put on this wonderful presentation. The Education and Public Outreach Committee is also looking for assistance, especially online presenters and to anyone who's got the equipment, a telescope camera operator for virtual star parties. And just a reminder that if you're not a member, you first must be a member if you'd like to help volunteer at events. If you're interested, please contact myself at president@rascto.ca. Just a reminder about RASC membership, including myself. I should renew, actually, now that I think about it. You can renew online at secure.rasc.ca. If things are a little tight at the moment, the RASC does have an emergency fund. It's completely confidential. And as well, gift memberships are available. The holiday season is coming up in the not so distant future. For full details on either of those, please contact mempub@rasc.ca. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a pleasant evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Please follow us on all the forms of social media that we've got listed here. If you like what you saw here on YouTube, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And be safe and keep looking up. Good night, everyone.